It was just after dawn on December 23rd, 1944, in the frozen forest near the village of Hatan, during the brutal winter fighting of the Battle of the Bulge, when a German tank commander inside a massive Tiger II felt something he could not explain. The world around him looked calm, too calm. Frost covered the trees. Fog hung low over the Ardennes hills, and the narrow road ahead appeared deserted. His tank, nearly 70 tons of steel and arrogance, rested like a fortress on tracks. Its long 88mm gun, feared across Europe, pointed confidently into the mist. For months, German crews had been told that at long range, they were untouchable. American Shermans had burned in France. Allied guns had bounced harmlessly off thick frontal armor. Distance meant safety. Superiority meant survival. But somewhere beyond that silent white fog, unseen eyes were watching, calculating range, adjusting elevation by fractions of a degree. Less than 2 miles away, crouched inside a vehicle that looked fragile compared to German heavy armor, an American crew waited in absolute silence. Their machine had no thick steel plates, no intimidating silhouette, no myth built around it. It was the M36 Jackson, a thin-skinned tank destroyer with an open turret and a long 90mm gun that very few German commanders even knew existed. The men inside understood the brutal truth. If they were spotted first, they would not survive long enough to fire twice. Snow could fall directly into their turret. Shrapnel could tear through them. Even machine gun bursts were deadly. But the gun they carried changed the rules of the battlefield. The 90mm M3 cannon, similar to the weapon mounted on the M26 Pershing, had stunned American commanders during testing. It could punch through German heavy armor at ranges previously considered impossible. By late 1944, U.S. forces had learned painful lessons. Shermans had struggled against Panthers and Tigers since Normandy. Tank crews feared the deep crack of German guns. A Panther could kill before being seen. A King Tiger felt almost supernatural, its frontal armor nearly immune to standard Allied fire. German crews believed in their invincibility beyond 500 yards. That belief was about to die in the snow. The M36 had been rushed into service out of desperation. Earlier tank destroyers like the M10 and M18 were fast, aggressive, but underpowered against new German designs. Engineers took the reliable M10 chassis and mounted the powerful 90mm gun with little time for refinement. Crews trained quickly, often learning in motion, as Germany prepared its final gamble in the West. When the offensive began on December 16th, chaos erupted across the Ardennes. Snow-covered roads clogged with retreating American units. Communication collapsed. German armor advanced under fog and poor weather, exactly as planned. King Tigers crushed roadblocks, scattered infantry, and pushed westward with terrifying confidence. Many American soldiers believed nothing could stop them. But scattered quietly along defensive lines were small groups of M36 crews using terrain, elevation, and patience as weapons. One such crew from the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion held position near a frozen river crossing. Their orders were simple: hold the line, delay the enemy at any cost. As fog lifted slightly that morning, binoculars revealed a distant shape on a ridge. Unmistakable, massive, a King Tiger scanning the valley. The range was extreme, nearly 2,800 yards. Under normal circumstances, firing at that distance would have been pointless. But this was not a normal gun. The crew worked silently, breath visible in frozen air. One mistake meant death. The first shot cracked sharply, slicing through the cold morning. For seconds, nothing happened. Then smoke seeped from the turret impact point. The German tank halted. Its turret froze mid-rotation. Inside, confusion turned to horror. A penetration at that range was supposed to be impossible. Flames followed. The King Tiger, symbol of armored dominance, burned in the snow. Down the line, another German commander watched in disbelief as his lead vehicle became a smoking wreck. He scanned desperately for Shermans within a mile. He found none. What he did not expect was death arriving from beyond certainty. Another 90mm round slammed into his hull. It did not penetrate, but it shattered confidence. The myth of invulnerability cracked. German reports from that week described engagements by unknown long-range American weapons. Some suspected secret heavy tanks. Others imagined hidden naval guns. The truth was simpler and more humiliating. Thin-skinned American tank destroyers were killing Europe's most feared tanks without ever entering close combat. By Christmas Eve, snow deepened and the fighting intensified. German fuel shortages worsened, yet armored columns continued pushing west, hoping to split Allied forces before air power returned. Near Bastogne, elements of the 814 Tank Destroyer Battalion repositioned their M36s under urgent midnight orders. Heavy German armor was moving toward critical crossroads. Infantry were exhausted. Few American tanks remained operational. Once again, the burden fell on fragile vehicles with very long guns. Lieutenant Charles Weaver, only 24 years old, studied a frozen valley near a small Belgian village. He selected elevated firing positions with clear sight lines and escape routes. His crews camouflaged their silhouettes with snow and brush. They knew the doctrine now. Fire first, fire far, relocate immediately. Around mid-morning, German armor appeared. 2 King Tigers supported by Panthers, infantry riding on decks for protection. The Germans were cautious now. Turrets scanned constantly. But even alert crews cannot see what they do not expect. At just over 2,700 yards, Weaver gave the signal. The first 90 millimeters round struck below the turret ring of the lead King Tiger. Partial penetration, but enough to jam rotation and wound crew members. Seconds later, a second round pierced side armor as the tank attempted to reposition. Flames erupted. Infantry scattered across ice as machine gun fire tore through snowbanks. The second King Tiger reversed desperately, engine roaring, but another well-placed shot penetrated rear armor. Smoke billowed. Fire consumed the steel giant. Panthers fired blindly toward the ridge, shells falling short. By the time German gunners adjusted aim, the M36S had already vanished behind cover. Encounters like this repeated across the Ardennes. The M36 did not fight often, but when it did, results were decisive. Late December German reports described severe losses from long-range American fire that could not be accurately traced. Few identified the Jackson correctly. Fewer understood how vulnerable heavy armor had become. The key was ammunition. By late 1944, improved armor-piercing rounds, including HVAP, allowed the 90 millimeters gun to defeat even the thick plates of a King Tiger under correct conditions. These rounds were scarce, reserved for priority targets. Used properly, they transformed the Jackson into a sniper capable of rewriting battlefield psychology. On December 30th, near a small town along the shrinking German salient, an M36 recorded one of the longest confirmed kills of the campaign, engaging a stationary King Tiger at nearly 3,000 yards. The first round failed. The second exploited an angle. The third penetrated. The German tank burned for hours, visible for miles across frozen fields. By New Year's Day 1945, momentum had shifted. Allied aircraft returned under clear skies. German fuel reserves collapsed. Roads clogged with destroyed armor slowed every retreat. And behind many of those wrecks stood the quiet work of M36 crews who rarely receive headlines. They did not charge heroically into close duels. They waited. They calculated. They struck from beyond perceived safety. The psychological damage to German crews was severe. Commanders who once advanced boldly now hesitated before crossing open ground. Requests for reconnaissance increased. Progress slowed further. In armored warfare, hesitation can be fatal. American infantry noticed immediately. Where heavy tanks once rolled forward with confidence, they now probed cautiously or withdrew entirely. Morale improved. Soldiers who once felt helpless against German steel now believed the enemy could be beaten. The M36 restored something more valuable than territory. It restored belief, yet its crews paid heavily. Open turrets offered little protection from artillery airbursts. Shrapnel tore through exposed men. Frostbite and exhaustion were constant companions. They slept inside freezing vehicles, ate cold rations, and remained alert for days. But they understood their importance. Every long-range kill saved lives close to the front. As January progressed, the German offensive collapsed into retreat. There was no dramatic surrender, Only abandoned wrecks, silent engines, and empty fuel tanks scattered across snow-covered roads. Among them lay dozens of King Tigers, many destroyed by guns their crews never believed could reach them. In the months that followed, the M36 continued supporting advances into Germany, guarding flanks and dominating open approaches. It never became as famous as frontline battle tanks, but among those who served with it, its reputation was unquestioned. After the war, historians would debate exact distances and individual engagements. Some claims would be challenged, others confirmed. But one truth remained undeniable. The M36 Jackson shattered the myth of heavy armor invincibility. Distance was no longer safety. Superiority was no longer guaranteed. In the frozen forests of the Ardennes, a quiet American tank destroyer helped decide the fate of a campaign. Not through brute force, but through precision, patience, and reach. And for the German crews who once believed themselves untouchable, the realization came too late.